Right guys, second video of the night. I've been doing some research on this virus that's been flying about. Started off in China, and this new, well, I don't know, pneumonia kind of virus. It's like COVID, you know, chest, sweats, you know, just basically feel like crap. A lot of people have been getting it. My best mate Nico, he's more like a brother than a mate. He's had it. Got a friend who lives in Wales. I'm down in the southeast of the UK. So I said my friend in Wales, he's still got it. I've had it, I still got it a bit. I don't know, when some of my videos you see me munching on these old throat lozenges. And these Hall lozenges. Now you end up with a nasty sore throat. Coughing up all kinds of muck. And you're coughing so much, your rib cages feel like they're going to burst. Anyway, I'm going to play you this clip. And we'll go from there, guys. But the reason everyone's catching these bloody viruses this winter is because we all wore face masks during COVID, which has somewhat diminished our immune system. So it's been more detrimental to our health than doing any good. Because now, this winter, everyone's getting ill because they wore the face mask and had the COVID jab. Now this winter, everyone's falling ill. But it seems all you need to get better from this particular nasty is plenty of rest and drink plenty of water. But the main effect it's having on children is another matter entirely. Let's get to the video.
Children around the world have started falling sick. It's scary. Because it is hard to put a finger on what really...
I'll just pause it a minute because the volume needs to go up. Some joke has turned my volume down. Now here we go. Now listen to this. The one, I feel very sorry for the children, to be quite honest, because it's hitting them a lot harder and they're not as versatile as adults. You know, they can suddenly go from getting better to just snow diving the opposite way in no time at all with no warning. Their symptoms can just get worse just like that, snap, no warning. So children, we really need to be looking out for with this.
Really is triggering the cough. Some experts believe it's a combination of different illnesses. Some are pointing at a mysterious pneumonia, some at white lung syndrome, even mycoplasma pneumonia and walking pneumonia. These are different names with similar symptoms. I'm talking about cough, fever and fatigue. Children as young as 3 are falling sick. Just have a look at what's happening in the United States. At least 142 children have fallen sick in just one county in Ohio. The average age of the patients is 8. Most of them tested positive for mycoplasma pneumonia. What is this? It's a lung infection caused by a bacteria. 142 is an unusually high number for a lung infection. What's more, in Ohio, it qualifies to be termed as an outbreak. The American state has launched an investigation. It is trying to find out what exactly is triggering this wave of illness. Is it a Chinese export? For weeks now, we've been telling you that something is not right in China. Consider this.
This powerful heater can heat up any room in a second.
China. Where did COVID come from? China. Now this could be coming from China.
To today's talk. It's Wednesday the 29th of November.
What's he doing there? Don't want you. I said we want her back.
Children as young as 3 are falling sick. Just have a look at what's happening. Is it a Chinese export? For weeks now, we've been telling you that something is not right in China.
Just like
Consider
COVID
this.
came from China.
In just one Beijing hospital, there are at least 7,000 hospitalized children. At least that's what reports are claiming. In cities like Xi'an as well, hospitals are crowded. We have been showing you videos of children doing their homework while receiving IV. We've also been getting you voices from on the ground of parents who are extremely worried. Many of them believe China is covering up something big, perhaps another outbreak. We have been constantly reminding you that the Wuhan virus also started as a mysterious pneumonia. The current infection has spread to several Chinese cities, by the way. China claims there is no novel virus. Instead, the illnesses are being triggered by a mix of known viruses. China is also pointing at a seasonal surge. In other words, Beijing wants you to believe that what's happening is normal. Why is that? Because people fall sick during the cold season. But here's the problem. Numbers are not adding up. In the Netherlands, there is a spike in pediatric cases. Between November 13 and 19, there were 103 pneumonia cases for every 100,000 children between the ages of 5 and 14. The week before, the number was 83. Last year, during the peak of the flu season, the Netherlands had just 58 cases of pneumonia for every 100,000 children. That number has almost doubled as we speak. How do we explain this data? Here's one explanation. Whatever is infecting babies in China has jumped borders. In Taiwan, people, especially the elderly and the young, have been asked to avoid travel to China. Back in the United States, Massachusetts is seeing a rise in illness among children. Doctors say it could be RSV. What's that, you ask? Respiratory syncytial virus. This virus is adding to the rising number of walking pneumonia cases, which is a term for a milder form of pneumonia. The symptoms again are sneezing, runny nose, sore throat and wheezing. In Denmark, at least 541 cases of Mycoplasma pneumonia were reported last week. The cases have tripled since October. Mycoplasma pneumonia causes inflammation in the lungs, and Denmark State Serum Institute has issued a statement warning of a spike in cases of Mycoplasma pneumonia. Listen to what SSI has also said. It said the infections in Denmark were high enough to be classified as an epidemic. Experts, in fact, pointed at how the numbers were significantly more than normal. And what explains that? Is it China? Every minute there are flights going in and coming out of China, remember. We are currently in the holiday season. Tourists from China are traveling around the world. Tourists from around the world are traveling to China. And what's more, Beijing is counting on tourist dollars this year. The citizens of France, Germany, Italy, Malaysia, the Netherlands have been allowed to travel to China visa-free. In India, several states are on alert. In the national capital, New Delhi, a high-level meeting was held. A team of doctors and experts discussed the distressing news coming out of China. The team also took stock of the preparedness here in Delhi. Experts saying, in order to stay safe, one must wash their hands, cover their mouth when coughing, stay home when ill, and stay up to date with the vaccines. We are now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move. The killer cough from...
It's just getting crazy. This virus has got to be coming from China. Let's see what this is. This is a British doctor, or an ex-British doctor. Let's see what he's got to say.
Got all the details yet, and we will be following it closely, but I do have some tentative conclusions. Now, I'm going to put all the references, as always, to this in the description where I got this information from. Definitely listed as undiagnosed pneumonia, or a pneumonia where it's difficult to say what is causing it. Now, of course, we expect rebound infections because China was locked down probably more than any country on earth, certainly for longer than any other countries on the earth. So we would have a degree of what we call community immune debt, as children are catching up with infections that they didn't have during the lockdown period. But it doesn't really quite explain it. So hospitals in Beijing, in the northeast of China particularly, and are the symptoms usual or unusual seems to be somewhat unclear. The Chinese authorities, echoed by the World Health Organization, say it's the usual features of respiratory illnesses, but there are some things that are a little bit unusual, as we'll look at. Now, one interesting thing is that China has reported for the first time Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Now, this is Mycoplasma are an unusual type of bacteria.
There you go.
Very simple, very small form of bacteria. And traditionally, we've said that these can cause atypical pneumonia. Typically, they cause pneumonia in children, although it only causes pneumonia in the minority of children, but it does affect adults as well. So China are now talking about this Mycoplasma pneumonia, and it seems to be the first time. Now, they're admitting.
So there you go. Does it affect adults as well? That would be what I've had it. My mate Niku's had it. My mate in Wales, well, he's still got it. I'm just about coming to the end of it. A lot of people have been catching this here in the UK and over in the United States. But yet again, it seems to all be coming from China.
To COVID, influenza, respiratory syncytial virus, those things we would expect. But this one does seem to be new, and this could be the crux of the matter. Now, local reports are saying that there's inflammation in the lungs, which is what a pneumonia is. And they're also saying there's a high fever, which is not surprising, but they're also saying there's no cough, which is very surprising. Because typically with mycoplasmic pneumonia, we would expect generalised aches and pains, of course, typically a high fever, around about 39 degrees centigrade, 102 degrees Fahrenheit. But we would usually expect a cough, but the reports are saying that there's not a cough. So this is a bit unusual, a bit inconsistent. And pneumonia normally in mycoplasmic infection only occurs in 5 to 10% of people infected with it, yet we seem to be seeing this glut of pneumonia. So it seems to be causing more pneumonia than we would expect, unless the infection with this mycoplasmic bacteria is incredibly common, which could well be the case. There seems to be a lot of it. Now, Chinese Centre for Disease Control has reported on this, and the World Health Organization, of course, has echoed pretty well what they've said, but they do agree there's an upsurge in respiratory illnesses amongst children in northern China. WHO report from the 23rd of November. Now, the World Health Organization has boldly approached China, as you might expect, and asked for laboratory results and data, recent trends in respiratory illness from China's health authorities. And one thing that really concerned me here was the World Health Organization have said they did this under the terms of the international health regulations, which of course we know they're in the process of trying to amend to make them really even stronger. And of course we obviously know that China would adhere 100% to the international health regulations. And whatever China said, the World Health Organization just seems to have regurgitated that. Anyway, leaving that point for now, WHO said China's health authorities have said the rise in hospitalizations since October is known to known pathogens. Known pathogens. Adenovirus, influenza virus, respiratory syncytial virus, but adding this mycoplasmic one as well. And we would expect more infections in winter, to be fair. But the Messenger said this. I'm just going to read something from the Messenger online. I'll put the link for it. Chinese medical statistics remain deeply unreliable, according to the Messenger. The country still claims a total COVID-19 deaths of 120,000.
Just pause there a minute. What did China do in the beginning of the pandemic? Kept denying things, hiding things, instead of reporting it to the World Health Organization a lot earlier. I believe that's what China's doing here. They're trying to cover something up, something more sinister is going on, And China, yet again, is trying to cover it up. But time will tell.
And independent estimates have said it's about 2 million. So is there a deficiency in trust here, or is it just that the World Health Organization are echoing what China has said? Or should we expect more interrogation and rigour from the World Health Organization, is what people are uncomfortable with. Now, it is China's first major winter without restrictions, so it's not surprising. Mycoplasma pneumonia, Mycoplasma pneumoniae is the name of the organism. They are known to affect children more than adults, although it is not that uncommon in adults as well. And the Chinese are saying there's no change in the disease presentation, despite the fact that there doesn't seem to be the cough, which is a bit unusual for the mycoplasma. Chinese authorities have advised that since mid-October they've got enhanced testing and surveillance. So the Chinese authorities are partly saying this is due to increased surveillance, which is true. There is increased surveillance, but there does still necessarily seem to be a really quite a big surge. We have seen increased surges in the UK with things like respiratory syncytial virus, influenza in the United States, but this does seem to be more than that. So this mycoplasma, it's a bacteria that affects the lungs. It can affect the lungs, but typically it causes walking pneumonia. These patients aren't normally ill and hospitalised, and it doesn't require bed rest, and it normally responds to antibiotics. Now, is there going to be another pandemic? I think the answer to that is no, because Medscape informs us that slow spread through household infection is common. So it tends to be household spread. You get infections in student halls of residences, military barracks with young adults, again, who presumably have little resistance to this. So it's typically a disease of young people, although, as we said, it can affect older people, particularly the older 65s.
I'm 54 and it got
very
me.
often the mycoplasma, it does occur in outbreaks, but it's not particularly seasonal. So probably, again, there's a slight inconsistency there with the seasonality. So, yeah, we expect these outbreaks, but this seems to be bigger than we would expect. Now, as you would expect, the University of Hong Kong is saying this is a typical winter surge in acute respiratory infections, just happening slightly earlier. But other more independent observers in the UK are saying since China experienced a far longer and harsher lockdown than other parts of the planet, it was indicated that there would be a lockdown exit, sort of rebound infections, and that is true, but again, this seems to be more than that. Now, we know that these mycoplasma pneumonia infections have been common. Teachers have been getting ill as well as children. Now, bacterial pneumonia can often occur after a viral infection. So one question is there a common virus here that's predisposing people to bacterial infections? Could this be a novel virus? Well, we simply don't have the data to know that, but we do know that bacterial infections are more common after viral infections, and people have less resistance to novel viral infections. So that's by no means precluded. But I think perhaps the main thing that's going on here is we've got studies from Beijing that show that the bacterial resistance to mycoplasma pneumonia in Beijing is between 70 and 90%, and this is based on old data. Now, normally we treat mycoplasmic infections with antibiotics ending in mycin, like erythromycin, clarithromycin, azithromycin. Or sometimes as a standby we can use levofloxacin as a secondary choice. It could well be that there's a lot of bacterial resistance now in China, and that is meaning that any children that are infected with these this organism, this typical atypical, it's typically called an atypical infection. It is atypical, it's a term we use often, but really it's not a good term to say atypical, it's really mycoplasmic pneumonia. But there's a lot of bacterial resistance to that. So where does that leave us? Well, at the moment with no evidence for a novel virus or bacterial infection. Doesn't mean to say it's not there, but with no specific evidence for that. Apart from the fact that these infections could be occurring after viral infection. I think what we're probably dealing with here is potentially dangerous mycoplasma antibiotic resistance, meaning that if this spreads around the world, people that get mycoplasmic infections are probably going to have difficulty treating it. That's the perhaps main danger I see at the moment. It's possible bacterial infections after a novel virus, but that is less likely. A new pandemic I do not think is imminent due to slow household transmission, typically of mycoplasma. Now, the fact that this could be multiple drug resistant mycoplasma, is not going to change its transmission characteristics and its pathogenicity. The bacterium is essentially the same. It's just that it can't be treated with the antibiotics that typically could be treated with. And because it's not treated with the antibiotics, there's going to be more of it around, so there's more potential for spread. So we could see slow spread of this around the world. Now, quite why the Chinese authorities and the World Health Organization wouldn't want to discuss something as straightforward as bacterial resistance is difficult to know, but there is a culture of secrecy in certain authorities in China, so it's not that surprising, really. So it could be slow spread of multiple antibiotic resistant spread of mycoplasmic pneumonia is probably the main risk. Now, the World Health Organization unfortunately doesn't mention the need to optimize. It talks about preventing spread with mask wearing and isolation. Didn't work very well in the COVID pandemic, did it? But in their press release, I can't read anything about optimizing the immune system, nutrition, vitamin D, sleep, exercise, appropriate antigenic challenge in the light of the hygiene hypothesis. I didn't really see anything about that. And I certainly didn't see anything about upgrading the innate immune system, as we've seen from discoveries and research by Professor Angus Dalgleish with his injectable preparation and from Professor Robert Clancy with his oral preparation to upgrade the innate immune system. So it's a pity these aren't being talked about. So that seems to be what's happening. Big problem. We don't know of children dying yet, but that could be the case. We simply don't have that information. There's claims that children are not dying. Let's hope that is true. But we could be dealing with spread of significant antibiotic resistance in this mycoplasmic pneumonia, which could become a global concern. And perhaps we can no longer fully depend on antibiotics the way we once could. And perhaps we need to be looking at ways of upgrading the immune system, so that if people get this infection, it is less serious for them to suffer from. So, new pandemic, don't think so. Slow spread of antibiotic resistance, probably. It's my reading of this so far, based on very limited data, but I hope that helps. And of course, if more data becomes available, we'll talk about that as soon as the data becomes available. But for now, thank you for all your...
Well, there you go, guys. So it seems that this new form of pneumonia is somewhat resistant to antibiotics. It's mainly affecting children, but can affect adults and older people. I've had it. A couple of my friends have had it. Another one of my friends in Wales, as I said earlier, has got it. So it could become a global problem. But if you think you've got it, go see your doctor. Get it confirmed or denied. And if you have got it, plenty of rest, drink plenty of fluids, water, and don't go out. Stay in. Get that rest, drink plenty of water, and you should start getting over it within 4 to 5 days. You won't be fully over it, but about 4 to 5 days, the symptoms start teetering out. So I'm going to leave this video there. And we'll just see where this goes. He doesn't think it's going to be another pandemic. I don't think it will be. I'm more worried about this other disease they've been on about, disease X. Supposed to hit us in 2025 at some point. And that's supposed to be a lot worse than COVID was. But only time will tell, guys. Only time will tell. Anyway, all have a nice Christmas. Don't eat too much. And spoil your Christmas with gut ache. So we shall leave it there. Catch you on the next video.